So, thank you very much for attending this session on Global Azure Summit, and I'll be talking about SQL Server in the cloud, available options and migration, and so on. Sorry, I have not included the hashtag here. What's the hashtag for this event today?
We just use the hashtag Lüdinghausen. It's the hometown of Frank's office. I just posted in the chat right now, but I think it doesn't really matter if we do not have the hashtag right now in the slides or not.
So how do I write?
You'll find it in the chat now. It's LUEDINGHAUSEN.
In the chat, let me say, check. Okay. Great. So this will be a bit more complete with
Awesome.
the correct hashtag. Sorry for improvising a bit. I had to do some adjustments on the last minute. It's normal. We are always full of tasks. So a bit about me. This is me. I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP with some Microsoft certifications, including trainer, and I'm the leader of Malta Data Platform User Group. And here you find one of the websites of the group. After we lost PaaS, our group become a bit spread. We have links all around Facebook, Meetup, and so on. And for now, we are trying to concentrate on this link. Anyway, on the right side, you can see all my contacts. Feel free to get in touch. It will be a pleasure to get in touch. There is my YouTube channel where I upload videos, many technical videos, and there is my personal site. On my personal site, you can find also an option to subscribe to a newsletter that I send from time to time. So it will be a pleasure to keep in touch, and feel free to ask me any question. And today, I hope this is not a problem, but I include a slide about the conference that I'll be organizing on the following Saturday, Malta Data Saturday Conference on April 25. It will be very interesting. We are working very hard, especially to make it not only just a conference, but something fun and with prizes and something very interesting. And just to give a preview, today at 6:30 p.m. I hope this not is on the same time of any of the Global Summit sessions. We'll have a happy hour. And this may be interesting since you will have attended all the sessions during the Azure Global Summit. Get an online happy hour prepared to be fun. It may be very interesting, and everyone is welcome. I hope it's not a problem to choose to mention these two events on the.
No, that's really not a problem. So if I find the time, I'll try to take a look this afternoon. And regarding the Data Saturday Malta, I think also a few of the German speakers have submitted as well, and I think one or two are also were accepted. So we are all looking forward to this event as well.
Thank you. Great. It will be a great conference. So our agenda today. I'll talk about pizza as a service. and moving to the cloud, choosing a cloud provider, some details about choosing a cloud provider. Then we talk about some options. Let's start with virtual machines and then talk about Azure SQL Database. There are some other details. I'll talk about managing instance, but there are some more technical details that will not go so in deep. It would be make the session huge. So this is pizza as a service. You may immediately find some reference, some relation to what we work every day. So the first column, let's imagine that you decide to make a pizza at home, to have a pizza at home. So you have all the blue blocks. This means that you need to provide all this. All this is your responsibility. You need to provide all this. And on the second column, we have an option of take and bake. So you have the pizza almost ready for you, all the details of the pizza, the tomato sauce, the toppings, the cheese, but you still need to bake the pizza, prepare the dining table, soda, and so on. So you have reduced responsibilities, but you still have some responsibilities. But instead of all that, let's say that you are a bit lazy and you just call delivery service. Here in Malta, we use both food. I'm not sure how spread both food is around other cities. Do you have both food in Germany?
Pardon me?
Do you have the service boat food in Germany? Boat usually is like a taxi service, but when the pandemic started, it became boat food to deliver food for us.
For
And there
sure.
are,
So all the delivery companies are now all across the town. It's delivery most of the time. A few restaurants which are offering food to go, so pick up, but most time it's delivery. Yes, yes.
yes, that's it. So this kind of delivery service saves us a lot of work. So you only need to have a dining table, get the soda, and eat. Just eat. So the delivery service is doing almost everything for you. Then later you have the dine it out options. Oh, let's decide to go out and dinner. I know on this pandemic it is a bit more difficult, but it may happen. And then you have everything prepared for you. Everything is prepared for you. And okay, but why are we talking about pizza? We talk about pizza because this example is exactly the model that we have in the cloud. It's exactly what we have in the cloud. If we are using an on-premise environment, we need to handle everything. Then conforme we advance to other cloud, let's say cloud models, infrastructure as a service. We receive the infrastructure and we don't care about the infrastructure. We need to handle only the high level services. Platform as a services, it will handle even more services for us. We will focus even more on the application. And software as a service will handle everything for us. A software as a service, for example, is Office 365. Is a software as a service. You don't care for all the infrastructure that is behind. You just open the software and use it. Just that. So we have this cloud architectures, and we need to choose these cloud architectures. And many times it's not only a matter of choosing one of these cloud architectures. It's not only about choose. It's about to follow a path to evolve our applications. Get one application that is on-premise and slowly evolve the application for each further step. Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. Not all applications go to software as a service. Some of them go to software as a service. And we have an example here about a bad movement to the cloud. Take a look on this cartoon. This cartoon is classic. It's showing how is a bad movement to the cloud happening. And the boss is happening. Why didn't we get advantage from our move to the cloud? Because we only install in the cloud the same thing that we had on premise. So there will not be advantages, just the same thing put in another place. And the boss trying to through some technical words that probably he doesn't even know what it means, like just put the application Kubernetes in containers and so on. And that's not the way it happens. That's not the way it happens. So the process to move to the cloud is a bit more complex than that. Not complex about being technically difficult. Complex in relation to need planning, and the tasks of this planning needs to be executed. So when we are moving to the cloud, we start with a process of lift and shift. It means that we'll get exactly what we have on premise and make the move to the cloud. A process that is called lift and shift. Usually, when we start with a lift and shift, we'll be using virtual machines. Virtual machines can mirror exactly the same configurations that we have on premise. We have a mirror of the configurations of on premise. And after the lift and shift, we will need to go to a task called app modernization. The app modernization task is a task to transform the application that was originally built to work on premise to become a cloud native application. It's not just, oh, let's do app modernization and that's it. No, it's not that. An application after the lift and shift can have many points of the application, many surfaces of the application identified as a potential surface to be improved, to be modernized using cloud features. So what I'm calling app modernization involves lots of tasks, focus on specific services and transforming these services in cloud native services. And this is a joke that runs around internet. There is no cloud, it's just someone else's computer. This is not totally wrong. This is not totally wrong, of course, but it's a joke. It's intended to be a joke. However, if we misunderstand the joke, if we look to this joke with some misunderstanding of what it's meaning, that it is a joke, we may end up following this idea. Oh, migrating to the cloud is just to have another computer in the cloud running our applications and just that. And that's not true at all. That's not true at all. The idea to have another computer in the cloud, a virtual machine in the cloud running your application, is the step of lift and shift. Make a lift and shift from on-premise to the cloud. That's the idea of the process, a lift and shift from the application to the cloud. However, the lift and shift is not enough. We need to make application modernization. So it's important to have a good understanding of this internet joke, that it is only a joke. Because when we go to the next step, the step of app modernization, we are not talking about only a computer on the other side of the cloud. Of course, there are computers on the other side of the cloud, but they are managing services in such a way that the presence of the computer may be transparent from some point of view. What we need is to use it as a service. The platform will give us a service. What's called platform as a service. Then, choosing a cloud provider. How do we choose a cloud provider? I'm very disappointed when we see with things that I see in the market, because I see people in the market choosing a cloud provider based just on virtual machines, and I see the people who needs to take the decision to choose the cloud provider having no understanding about the need of the app modernization as a second step to advance the application. And what's the consequence? The consequence is that if we are focused only on choosing a cloud provider based on the virtual machine offers of that cloud provider, we will be ignoring the PaaS offers that those cloud providers have. And by ignoring the PaaS offers that those cloud providers have, a wrong choice of cloud provider may block our application. Our application will be able to make a lift and shift, and we will end up stuck on that point because the cloud provider doesn't really provide the needs that we have to run the modernization steps to really transform the app in a modernized app, making modernization steps. So let's start talking about some offers in Azure. And one of these starting offers is virtual machines. Virtual machines for SQL Server. Why I'm starting with this offer, with the offer of virtual machine? I'm starting with this offer because this is what will be used for the lift and shift. The task of lift and shift will depend on the virtual machine. But as I said before, and I'll say again, we can't only choose a cloud provider based on the virtual machine features of the cloud provider. We need to know what has beyond, what that provider gives us beyond the stage of virtual machine, so we can achieve an app modernization scenario going beyond the virtual machine. So virtual machines are the usual target for lift and shift. So I create a virtual machine inside the cloud provider, in this example Azure, and it will be the target of lift and shift. So we can just install our application on the virtual machine and it will work. Bring your out license. This is a feature of virtual machines. If we have on-premise license, we can, while requesting a virtual machine in Azure, we can use this license both for Windows and for SQL Server. If we don't have the license on the correct licensing schema, then when creating a virtual machine, it will charge us the license of the software. Not at all. So I will charge now the license of the software. No. It's like we are renting, leasing a software. We will pay a higher amount by month. But if you use the option to bring our own license, the license price will not be included on the monthly price of these apps. Then there are many templates. What I mean about that? I mean about virtual machine templates. There are many virtual machine templates for which to choose from. There are virtual machine templates focused on processors, the number of cores to process something. There are virtual machine templates focused on memory, with huge amount of memory available. So there are many different templates with different families of templates. In fact, this is quite difficult to follow because it has very frequent changes. And if you would like, you can create custom templates. You can start a virtual machine, make installations on virtual machine, and turn this virtual machine in a custom template that will be stored for you on the marketplace. And for further virtual machines, you can start from that template. So you have this ability to create templates for virtual machines. Azure SQL, but I think I missed one slide at this point, because at this point my idea was to make a demonstration about virtual machine. Let's see how virtual machines work. Let's take a look about how virtual machines work. Let me open the Azure portal. I confess, I love big emotions. So I confess I have not prepared in so much detail this demonstration. So let's follow the demonstration and hope there is not unexpected coming. So I will create a SQL Server virtual machine. Azure SQL. What happens here? What happens here is that recently Azure decided to join all the database offers, SQL database, machine instance, virtual machines, under a single name. So there is a single name called Azure SQL that can offer all these options for us. And it is even mentioning here, it can offer a virtual machine. So when we choose on the marketplace the option Azure SQL, we are starting some kind of wizard that will guide us to decide what kind of offer we would like to use. In this example, I will use a virtual machine. And is asking what kind of image I would like to use. I have many pre-built image to use. Let's try an image for SQL Server 2019 and choose create to create this virtual machine. Okay. So I'll create a new resource group. Let's call this resource group Global Azure Demo. Okay. So I created a new resource group. Now I need to give the name of virtual machine. VM Global Azure. Let's hope no one got it before. No, it's fine. Usually I use the North Europe as a region. That's it. Availability options. Would I like to create some kind of redundancy on the virtual machine? This is completely possible, but no. Let's go with simple creation of a virtual machine. Image that I would like to use. Then here I can choose image and see our image. And choose an image of a virtual machine to be used. Let's get back a bit and choose. It got back too much. Let's try again. It got back too much. So virtual machine global Azure VM North Europe and availability options. I will not define availability options. I can choose the image that I use for this virtual machine. SQL Server 2019, no problem. I will use this image. And the size of the virtual machine, CL size. Let me get back a bit. Because it's complaining a bit about the size. Let me see if I find what's complaining. It didn't like this size for this image of virtual machine. I may need to choose a higher size, like BM2MS. Let's see if it goes. It goes a bit higher size. So we give an administrator password. Let's use my name. WM8X. And now the password is correct. Okay. Public inbound ports. I can select ports that will be public. There are many details about security here. This would need to be another session. Even I offered one session like this in session. Maybe soon some conference will ask that session, and it will be very interesting. But what's the point? The point is that I'm exposing a SQL Server on the internet, and this is not common at all. I could create private network inside my Azure environment and create an access between SQL Server, my SQL Server virtual machine, and private network, and even create a VPN in a way that to manage this SQL Server, I would need to connect to the VPN on Azure and then have access to SQL Server. This would be a way more safe environment. And then we come to license. It's advising me that if you already have the license for the software, I'll be saving a good amount of money. Done. So next, the disks of the virtual machine, premium SSD, encryption at rest on the disk. The premium disk is expensive, so for tests, I usually use the standard ADD, and already using the option encrypt at rest. And then next, networking, it creates specifically the network objects that I'll need for this virtual machine. Define the open port. I could configure here a load balance. I will not do that. Then management, boot diagnostics. I can enable boot diagnostics, OS diagnostics, and identity. Identity for a virtual machine. Yes, most object on Azure has this feature. What happens? Maybe the virtual machine would like to access another Azure service. How the virtual machine would be able to access another Azure service? The virtual machine can have an identity that identifies the virtual machine itself. Identifies the virtual machine itself. And then I have an auto shutdown option. A virtual machine has a considerable cost, especially if you are making experience. You would like to leave this like this. I mean, you would like to set an automatic shutdown timeout time. So if passing this time, the virtual machine will just shut down. Shutdown notification. Then we have site recovery, guest OS updates. This is way ahead details. Then it asks me some custom data. It's a virtual machine. I could configure anything on this virtual machine. I could build it in such a way that once installed, one script for me would customize the machine, would copy files to the machine, and so on. Then SQL Server Settings, it has the port 1433 open, and it's not using SQL authentication. The disks are here. Have options for Linux configuration, automating patching. I can configure the moment for the automating patching. Let's leave it as default and create our virtual machine. It will be ready in a moment. Our virtual machine, it will be ready in a moment. Create, and it advised me about the cost. This virtual machine will cost 0.0910 for each hour the virtual machine is online. Create. It's processing, creating the virtual machine. Okay, deployment is in progress. Taking quite a while. While it deploys the virtual machine, let's get back to our PowerPoint. So we advanced a bit, then we get back again to the virtual machine. So let's talk now about Azure SQL. Azure SQL is the next stage of evolution of our application. When we make a lift and shift, our application goes to a virtual machine, online. Azure SQL is the next step of evolution of our application. We move our application from a virtual machine to Azure SQL. But it's not exactly like that. Sometimes it's impossible to just move an entire application from the virtual machine to Azure SQL. Sometimes we need to plan the movement piece by piece of the application to reach Azure SQL and reach the app modernization purpose that we have. What Azure SQL options do we have and how do we work with them? Azure SQL Database. Azure SQL Database is one of the options that we have. In this case, we are managing database. We are creating database and managing database. And we have two charging models, and the story of these charging models is even interesting. It's quite interesting, this story. What happens? The original charging model for Azure SQL Database are called DTUs. We usually use DTUs on Azure SQL Database. The DTUs is a custom measure created by Microsoft, and DTUs has everything involved in a single metric. amount of CPU, amount of memory, database size, everything is involved in a single metric. For some situations, for some companies, this is very useful. This is very useful, especially for test database. This is really very useful. On the other hand, we have the vCore model. The vCore model was a request from some companies that they need more details about how to manage each feature in Azure SQL. So it was created the vCore model. The idea of the vCore model is that we can define specific details about the hardware, the number of cores that we would like, the memory that we would like, and so on. It's not something like lucky, like the DTU model. Then we have Azure SQL Database Serverless. The idea is interesting. The idea of the Azure SQL Database Serverless, it's interesting. We can send a query to SQL Database Serverless. It will get online in the moment it receives the query. It processes the query for us and send the query back. That's quite interesting. And we could use for lots of work. There are some problems in relation to the Azure SQL Database, the Azure SQL Database Serverless. And the problem is that we can only create the Azure SQL Database Serverless if we use vCore mode. There is no option for this using DTU mode, only using vCore mode. This makes Azure SQL Database Serverless many times more expensive do que a simple Azure SQL Database using DTUs. The use of DTUs on Azure SQL will be less expensive to have a vCore model inside an Azure SQL Database Serverless. To make things even worse, we have a feature that is always offered to us called data protection that we can enable on our servers and we check the data on our servers. However, if we apply data protection to SQL Serverless database, what will happen? The data protection will trigger the SQL Database Serverless, will trigger the protocol of the database. And triggering the protocol of the database, everything will end up being processing again. And that's a problem. Hyperscale is the big brother of everyone else. What's the idea? Hyperscale has an architecture built in such a way that is able to take control over very important database. It can get knowledge from very important database. So it is something a bit harder to do, something more difficult to do. Azure SQL Managed Instance, what's that? The problem is that when we have Azure SQL Db, we are dealing with DB, with the database. What happens if our on-premise solution has some other features that are not inside the SQL DB. For example, logins. The solution needs to manage logins and any other elements. So, to solve this problem, the Azure SQL Managed instance was created. While in Azure SQL Database, we can manage only a single database, on Azure SQL Managed instance, we will manage the instance. We will have access to an instance level. That's very good. And finally, we have the Azure SQL Virtual Machine that we already started a demonstration about that. Let's go back to our demonstration before going forward, because our demonstration about the virtual machine is ready. So I have already the demonstration about the virtual machine. Let's go directly to it. Where is my virtual machine? I have here Global Azure VM. This is the Azure virtual machine here. And besides the virtual machine, Microsoft also creates, let me locate among the objects. We have the virtual machine and we have the SQL virtual machine. What's the difference? Why do we have a virtual machine and a SQL virtual machine? Well, virtual machine is a service provided underneath other Azure services. The virtual machine is there and need to be managed in an operational system environment. However, this virtual machine is for SQL Server. So Azure created an Azure SQL virtual machine. And what the difference and benefit? The benefit and difference is that I can execute here in the portal tasks that in other way I would need to execute inside SQL. For example, establish backup. For example, security, configure the network security for the virtual machine, and so on. So we have, when we create a virtual machine for SQL, we have the concept of having the virtual machine itself and an object that is a virtual machine for SQL that allow us to execute SQL tasks from the Azure Portal UI. Okay, so our virtual machine is created.
Dennis, you have 5 more minutes, so maybe you need to hurry up a bit. I'm not that sure.
Okay, fine. So we have the virtual machine created. I think the connection to virtual machine may not be something new to everyone. So in order to proceed with the example, let's use Azure SQL. Let's talk about Azure SQL. Here on Azure SQL, the virtual machine option I already used. I have the option to create an Azure SQL database. I can create a single database. So let's create a SQL database. I think I already created the Global Azure VM group. I may have a resource group for that. Let's just create a new one. New global Azure. Global Azure. Then I define the server name. Global Azure SQL. Fine. And here I can specify the server. I'm creating a database, but I really need a server. And later, I'll be able to put multiple SQL database in the same server. When creating a server is the moment that I will specify the size of the server. So let's call the server Global Azure. No, someone already used this name. Global Azure Germany. Sorry. Money.
Yeah, that'll do the trick.
Yeah. Then let's put an admin password. Password. Location. North Europe. And that's it. I can control network. There are many rules of network control in relation to the SQL database. I will go to the basic and allow a public endpoint, but you have many options to control the network access here. And it's important to know the basic option is like you are exposing your SQL Server to the internet. So I use the basic option on demonstrations when I don't want to involve other subjects. But in production, you need to go beyond these basic options, these basic network options. Then I pass it by network. It's offering the Azure Defender. I don't want to enable Azure Defender. And there is a very interesting thing about Azure Defender. At this point, I'm creating a SQL database, a regular SQL database. But if I were creating a serverless SQL database and still enable Azure Defender, this would create a huge problem to us. Because every time Azure Defender accesses the server would be enabled and stay enabled for 1 hour. We could easily lose track of what's enabling the Azure SQL Serverless. It would be easily to lose track of that, and we will end up paying more than we thought. Backup or sample database, I can choose for that. So maintenance window is a new feature. I can choose a good time for maintenance window for the server. Then finally, review and create. It gives me the option $236.29 US. I did it wrong because I missed one option. It's a small option that is here behind when I was defining the server. This small option here is the configuration of the server. It pushes us to choose an option based on vCourse and then go to that price, $236.29. But if I'm making a test, for example, and I don't want to use vCourse, I could go back to the standard options and choose the basic options. 5 DTUs may be enough for this database. I have databases online that are using 5 DTUs and work very well. And the price went down for $5. Is $200 less because I choose
nearly unbeatable.
yeah, because I choose the correct option. So it's a good starting point. Later, we will discover that you need more resources, more needs. Then you can scale it up with no problem. But you can start with a database of $5. There is no problem with that. Then apply, review and create is creating our Azure SQL Database. Okay, it's creating the Azure SQL Database. While it's creating Azure SQL Database, I have some slides here. I'm sorry, these slides are not very organized.
Yeah, the thing is, I have no idea how many slides do you have left, because actually I don't want to interrupt you since you have so much to show. But
How
unfortunately,
how many minutes do we have?
minus 3 minutes.
-3. So okay.
Yeah, so maybe the next speaker will want to do a little technical check as well, and also need a short break. So that's now the timing problem I'll have.
Sure, it's the time to close. What I'm missing here is that there is a feature called Elastic Database, and the feature Elastic Database is used when we have lots of database. You have 100 SQL database. Then instead of paying one by one, you aggregate this database in what is called Elastic Pool, and this will even save you further money to your cloud environment. You have even a bigger savings on your cloud environment by using Elastic Pool. So I believe this is a good view of the options available online. And feel free to contact me about more details of these options as well.
Yeah. So
Let me leave the slide with the contacts here. Contacts. It will be a pleasure to connect and ask any questions that you would like. And I would like to thank you for inviting me for this great conference. I hope you have liked the session.
yeah, so thank you for your presentation. Also, on behalf of Frank Geisler and Ben Kettner, as well, thank you very much. And what I will do is I'll check back to see what other sessions you will have. So on Sessionize, I will follow you, and I will get back to you for the next upcoming events we will plan with our regional group.
Great, thank you very much. It will be a pleasure to talk to you again, to talk to your group again.